Hello beautiful beings, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm super excited to share this with you. I've been meaning to do it for a while and just been really busy preparing for the baby that's about to come. And today we're going to be doing a restorative yoga practice. So if you're not sure what a restorative yoga practice is, it's basically a practice where you're completely supported by props the entire time. So it's very passive, very slow, very healing. It is my favorite type of yoga, not just because I'm pregnant, but it has gotten me through the hardest times of my life. Whenever you're going through a really hard time, whether that's emotionally, physically, mentally, this practice is there for you. The scientific reason behind this practice is that you're passively in these postures for such a long time that you're able to access your connective tissue. So your connective tissue is going to be all the tissue that's wrapped around your organs, your skin, scar tissue. It's like the stuff that's actually really hard to get into. So it's more than just stretching your muscles, which is really cool because that's where you tap into that traumatic layer. So if you do have past trauma, a lot of built up stress, or you're dealing with just a really big thing right now, this is the practice for you. And you know what? Usually when I teach restorative yoga, I try to use as minimal amounts of props as possible because I'm always worried that people don't have them. But for today, we're not doing that. We're going to use as many props as we can and just do a full prop restorative practice. So with that being said, you're going to want to gather some things. First and foremost always is water. I have 2 blocks here. You might not need 2, but you might. And if you don't have yoga blocks, a good replacement could be really thick books that are about this thickness, or even a really sturdy box of some sort. I've seen people use Tupperware before. Work with what you have, and if you end up liking this practice, you're going to want to purchase props at some point anyways, but work with what you got for now. And then blankets. Blankets are the easiest part because they don't have to be these yoga blankets, right? They can be any type of blanket. They can even be a towel. You just want to be sure that you can fold them, stack them, make a thick padding for different uses, basically. So I'm going to have 3 today. And a bolster. And that's what I'm sitting on. So let me pull it out. This is what a yoga bolster looks like. There's all different types of variations. If you don't have a bolster, you can use any sort of cushion or pillow, but the firmer the better. And also layers, because you might get hot, you might get cold. I think that's about all you need. So you want to be on some sort of padded surface, but for this practice it does not have to be a yoga mat. Let's get started. So I like to start in a seated position for most of my practices just to kind of get grounded. Find a seat that's comfortable. You can sit on the edge of one of your blankets, you can sit on the bolster, you can even sit on one of your blocks. If you haven't yet, allow your eyes to close. And if you don't feel like closing your eyes today, that is totally okay. Just find a focal point to rest your gaze on. And as you start to settle into your seat, just begin to notice your surroundings. So tune into any sounds that you are becoming aware of. Maybe they're in your actual room or even coming across the screen. Let's take a deep breath through our nose when we're ready. Noticing any smells in the room, and then as you exhale, open your mouth and let it go. Let's do that a few more times at your own pace. Letting go of any tension, any stress. every exhale, surrendering a little bit deeper into your body, into your seat, and into this moment. Maybe you're starting to notice any tastes in your mouth or in the air. Notice the sensations that you're starting to feel. So if your hands are resting on your lap, what that feels like. Notice the warmth. Notice where your body is connecting to the earth below and where your body feels really supported. Noticing any pain or discomfort that the body might be trying to get your attention and tune into that. And let's take 3 healing breaths into any area that might be needing it. Just directing a nice deep breath wherever you're feeling some discomfort, some weakness or pain. Maybe just an odd texture. Trusting that your breath has the power to really transform this. And then lastly, taking a moment to notice something on your body that feels good. So especially coming to this practice, you might be dealing with a big pain or be in the middle of healing something. Or you might be like me at the end of your pregnancy and just feeling really uncomfortable. So it's maybe harder to find a part of your body that feels really good. But some ideas for this can be somewhere you feel really strong, somewhere maybe where you're nurturing life, or where the body just feels really supported. Maybe it feels really flexible or alive, but just searching somewhere. It can even be a metaphysical layer. It doesn't have to be this physical body that we're used to talking about. So maybe your heart just feels really warm and loved, or maybe intellectually you've been feeling really on it, so maybe the brain feels good. Just taking a moment to also acknowledge that, taking your body in as a whole and finding some gratitude for that area or areas. And then we'll take 1 or 2 hands to your heart, it's up to you. Noticing the warmth again, feeling that connection between the palm and your heart space, the place of connection with others, the place of love and gratitude, kindness and compassion. And just send yourself some of that today. You already did the hardest part, and that is showing up to your mat or showing up for your practice. Turning on this video, carving out the time and space it takes to get here. So give yourself some appreciation, some love, and set that intention that you'd like to see for your practice today. Maybe it is to practice with grace, compassion. Maybe it's just to stay with your breath. When you're done with that, you can go ahead and release your hand. Open those eyes with a slow blinking sensation. And let's get set up for our first restorative pose. So I'm always going to be giving lots of options, and then it's up to you to just find the most comfortable version of each pose that you can today. Your practice is always changing, and likewise so is each pose. So depending on how your body feels today, that's going to be how you'll set up. So don't be afraid to manipulate the props to do something maybe a little different than what I say, because we all have different bodies, different needs, and I just want you guys to be super comfy, super cozy. So grab that block, put it on the far end of your mat or rug, whatever surface you're on, and pick a level. There's 3 levels to the block. You can do the highest, middle, or lowest. This is going to create your incline, and we're going to be resting back. So if you are like me and you're pregnant in your 2nd or 3rd trimester, go ahead and go with the highest. It is safest for you and your baby. We're going to take one of our blankets, unfold it to at least about this size, and this is going to go underneath us. So you're going to pull it and put it on the end of that bolster so that it's underneath you for some extra padding. And then we have some options. These other 2 blankets, you can either fold them into 4ths. So this would be what we call bin size. This is like the regular size. Fold it once, fold it twice. Now you have a super thick padding. That's what I'm going to do. And this will go underneath your legs. The other option, which I'll show in a bit, is going to be using this for your head instead. So if you come down and you feel like your neck is flexing too far, then you'll use this for your neck instead. So let's start by bringing our feet to the mat or the floor. Scooch yourself so that you're not totally on top of the bolster. A good measurement is a fist length away. Gives space to the lower back. So measure a fist length, and then you're going to use your arms for support as you bend your elbows, tuck your chin in, and gently begin to roll down onto your support. Now, when you get here, you should feel well supported. If you don't and you feel like you need more support, go ahead and do that. So one thing that I see sometimes in my classes is that the bolster might be caving depending on how thick your bolster is, so you might need to use 2 blocks like so. And you'll do it at a incline, and that will help keep the bolster from folding. Alright? So just have patience if this is your first time doing a restorative practice. The more you practice this type of practice, the more you'll know what you like and what you need. Then you're going to bring the soles of your feet together. Your knees are going to start to open wide, and you're going to rest these folded blankets underneath your legs. If you're in option 2 and you came back and you feel like, whoa, I need a head pillow instead, I'll demonstrate what you can do then. So grab your blanket, and instead of folding it twice, you'll just fold it once. You'll put that at the end of your bolster, and this will be like a pillow. And then instead of opening your knees, you'll just bring your feet to the mat, come down onto your bolster, adjust the pillow so that it's only underneath your neck and your head. You don't want it underneath your shoulders. You want that really beautiful heart opening feeling here. And then you have some options with your legs. You can either open up your feet and rest your knees on each other, which can feel really good sometimes, or you can just lengthen out those legs, let the feet flop open, and just relax. Okay? So pick whichever version feels best for you. If you are pregnant, I'm going to recommend the knees open wide, because then you are getting that beautiful hip opening right where you need it. And other benefits of this pose are it's a heart opener, so you're going to have a lot more space to breathe into. So let's take a moment and breathe into that space. Notice the open heart. Take a moment to relax your shoulders fully. You can flip your palms face up. Relax your jaw, the space between your brows. Notice all of this space. And we're going to take a few breaths, breathing deeply into the space, filling our belly, our chest, all the way, full of fresh air. And then when you're ready, you'll exhale out of the chest, out of the belly. Breathing deep at your own pace, filling your torso, filling all of that space that you've made in your body. And then emptying the breath completely out, so much so sometimes it feels good to even slightly engage the lower abdominal muscles and push all of that air out. So you might be noticing as you breathe here that your lower back is getting a nice release. The pressure is no longer all on the tailbone and the lower back. We're actually in a really gentle back bend, so if you are dealing with any back pain, this might feel extra good to you. And as you're taking these deep breaths into your heart space, continue sending yourself that love that we started our practice with. And let that love spread from your heart space through your shoulders, through your abdominal muscles, all the way up through your neck and head, down through each arm, and down through your hips, front and back, down through each leg. If you are pregnant, of course, making sure the love is spreading from your heart to your baby. Each breath, massaging the baby with more love. Each exhale, almost hugging the baby in closer towards you. Let's take one more really deep, conscious breath in this pose. And then before we make it out of this pose, we'll connect again with our purpose, with our intention. So if you're pregnant, you can bring your hands to your belly, connect with your baby for a moment. If yours is anything like mine, they might be wiggling around, enjoying the yoga with you. And if you're not pregnant, take your hand or hands to your heart space and connect with yourself. Breathing into this space. And taking a moment just to acknowledge how you feel in this pose now versus when you first got into it. When you are ready to come out of this pose, we'll take a big inhale, stretch our arms overhead. Stretching nice and long through the body, all the way through the fingertips. Maybe you start to roll into your wrists as well. Getting some movement into the joints is always a really good idea, especially if it's winter where you're at. Bringing those hands back beside you when you're ready, and then feet back to the ground. And we'll just start to sway our knees really gently side to side, adding a little bit of movement. Might feel like a nice massage on your lower back. It's a really gentle twist. And then when you're ready to come up and out of this pose, we're again going to press into our hands, tuck our chin in, press into the strength of our arms as we start to roll up. If that's too much for you, know that you can always roll over to your side. Just be aware of the drop. And what we're going to do now is start to turn our body towards the bolster. So you're going to come into a tabletop position, which is also known as hands and knees. Wrists are underneath your shoulders, knees underneath your hips. It feels a lot better if your knees are on top of this padded blanket. And then we'll start to find a little bit of movement here. So let's start with cat and cow. You might be familiar with it if you've done yoga before. So as you inhale, allow your tailbone to lift, heart to melt, gaze to lift, only to where it's comfortable. And then as you exhale, press the hands into the mat as you roll your spine, looking between your thighs now, and just moving with your breath at whatever pace it naturally is flowing in and out of you. Maybe you start really gently with this movement and start to get more and more range of motion as you move. Just listening to your body. Good, let's take one more nice cat-cow together. Alright, and we're going to get into our next pose. So this is an optional switch, but I love to do it. I'm going to switch my blanket so that it's not vertical anymore, but rather horizontal. So this is so that once my knees open wide, we're coming into a supported child's pose. I have support under my knees no matter how wide I go. So open your knees up, bring your big toes together. We're going to be sending the hips back as far as they comfortably go, and then what you want to do here is adjust the height of the incline underneath you. Some people love to have this high incline. For me, because I am flexible, it feels like too much. So I'm going to take one block off. See how that feels. That was the higher block. That feels pretty nice, but I think too much still for me. So you can take the block all the way out if you're flexible, especially if you're not pregnant. You might be wanting to just do the pose without so much support. And if you are pregnant, make sure you're keeping space between the baby and the bolster. So my bolster doesn't even really come underneath my belly, but instead it's going to come to right on top of my belly. And if you haven't come down into the pose yet, you can take a big inhale, lengthen the spine through the crown of your head. And then as you exhale, turn one side of your face to the bolster as you melt onto it, allowing your chest to be fully supported here. If you get here and you're already feeling a pain in the knees that doesn't feel right, we don't want to mess with that. So one way to deal with it is grab a blanket, bring it to bin size, so unfold it, and then put it between your knees and your thighs. Then you come back down into the pose and your knees will now have more space. And you can experiment with how much space you actually need to give your knees. You can roll the blanket for more support. Just get creative with your props. And as you're settling in here, allow your elbows to come farther from the bolster so your shoulders can fully relax. Enjoy the support underneath you. If you haven't yet, allow your eyes to close. This pose in particular is really good if you're grieving any sort of loss. So just let yourself feel comforted, consoled, and nurtured in this pose. Bringing back that deep breath, allowing it to travel all the way down your spine. Every exhale melting a little deeper into the pose. On your next inhale, we're going to be switching the side of our face that comes to the bolster. So So just turning the head, but that might change the pose more than you'd think it would. So readjust as needed. And for this pose, we're going to work with a little mantra or affirmation, if that's how you'd like to call it. And for today, unless you have your own that you want to work with, feel free to use that, of course. But if you're needing an idea, I love this one. I use it all the time. Especially being pregnant, it can be a really helpful one. So with your next breath in, you'll repeat either out loud or in the privacy of your own mind, I am enough. As you exhale, I have enough. Next inhale, I do enough. And then you just start over. I am enough. I have enough. And I do enough. Keep breathing and working with this affirmation. Child's pose is another great hip opener and another one that relieves our lower back. And if you are pregnant, it can be really helpful to have your weight forward as much as possible. So this helps baby get into that optimal birthing position. So if you are really far along like me and maybe baby is breached or just facing the wrong way, as they say, sunny side up, then this can be a good pose to practice to get baby right where you want him or her. Let's take 3 more breaths into our child's pose, fully absorbing everything the pose has to offer us today. When you're done with those 3 breaths, we'll bring the hands back underneath the shoulders, press into the hands to rise. Big inhale. And then let's take our knees back underneath the hips and we'll start to reach one leg back at a time, releasing any tension, any tightness that might have accrued in the back of the leg there, reaching back through that heel. Breathing into it, and then switching sides when you're ready. The next pose we're going to be doing is a twist. So you're going to be walking your knees now towards the right side of your mat, and then laying down onto the left side of your hip, the left booty cheek. What you want to do here is line up your bolster so that it's centered to your hip bone. So I need to scoot forward a little bit. If you are pregnant again, make sure you're keeping space for the belly, the baby. So I'm going to scoot back as well. This is another pose where you might want to adjust the incline that you have. Maybe it's still really high and you want to take it down, or maybe you want to build it up. It really depends on your twist flexibility. So notice in a twist we are twisting the spine, right? So your chest is going to start twisting towards the bolster. So you want one hand straddling each side of the bolster. Take a big inhale, lengthen the spine. As you exhale, slowly come down onto your bolster. If you want to get a little bit deeper into the twist, you can take that top leg into the bottom foot. And just start to get comfortable here. After you've been here for a few breaths, if you'd like to get even deeper into your twist, feel free to take the head and look the opposite way, resting the right cheek on the bolster rather than the left. But for most of us, we're going to feel most comfortable with this left cheek on the bolster. And just remind yourself a restorative practice is not about pushing yourself. It's not how far you can go. It's not a performance. It's not gymnastics. It's simply listening to your body and doing whatever it's craving, whatever it's needing to heal. So again, we're going to take 3 deep breaths into this twist. If you like those breaths we did at the beginning of class, exhaling out of the mouth, then go ahead and return to those. We call them cleansing breaths in yoga. When you're ready to come out of this pose, slide the hands back underneath the shoulders, press yourself up. And we're just going to be switching sides from here. So you're going to take those knees underneath you, and then this time walk them towards the left. Bring the right side of your hip to the mat. Okay, so once your hip is centered, same thing as the other side. If you are pregnant, keeping space for baby, and if not, then just straddling the bolster, taking a big inhale, and then as you exhale, chest towards the bolster, right side of the face comes onto the bolster this time, and just finding a comfortable spot for those legs. So if you are far along in your 3rd trimester like me, you might need to move the bottom leg so that there's lots of space for baby. You might want to deepen the twist by taking that top leg back. And again, settling into your twist today. Being mindful that this side might feel totally different from the first. And that's okay. Here, how in a twist our breath is slightly compromised, so it might feel harder to take deep breaths, but it's just as important to do. Maybe you've also began to notice how different an inhale and an exhale can feel in a twist. Maybe you've also began to notice how different your inhales and your exhales feel in this pose. The inhales almost undo the twist, the exhales allow it to sink in. Twists are really good for our digestive system, and they also help release synovial fluid around the spine. Keeping our spine young and supple. So let's take one more deep breath into our twist on this side. When you're finished with that, making your way out the same way when you're ready, nice and mindfully. We're going to come back to a tabletop position. Here we're going to get into my favorite restorative pose. So go ahead and grab that blanket that was your padding. Fold this blanket that was the padding underneath you, either to bin size, or you can even fold it again for some extra lift. And you're going to be sitting on that. Yoga. You want to do yoga? Alright, so you're going to be moving the bolster now basically to the side of your mat, but you're going to face the side of your mat, so it is coming in front of you again. And it's going to be set up basically the same way. So this is optional. If you don't have room, you don't have to turn your whole body. But the reason I usually instruct everyone to do this is so that once you open up your legs like so, your feet are on the mat. So your feet have some padding. It can be kind of uncomfortable in this pose if they don't have any padding. So if you're on a rug, you probably don't have to adjust yourself at all. So same thing as the other pose, the incline is going to really depend on your flexibility, especially in this pose. Options to build that in support underneath you if you need more is to add blankets that are folded from bin size once. So they're basically half a bolster, and you can do both your blankets if you need it. People tend to be pretty tight in this pose, so if that's you, don't feel bad. It's pretty normal. The first part of this pose is bringing your hands behind you. I like to do just fingertips to the ground. Press your pelvis forward, your belly forward, your heart comes forward, shoulders come back. Go ahead and flex into your feet if you haven't yet, and just see how this feels. So if you're dealing again with lower back pain, this is probably going to be your best option. And if at some point throughout this pose your back starts to feel weird, come up and try this position. If you'd like to come down onto the support, you'll bring your hands out front, straddle the bolster just like the other poses. Same thing if you're pregnant, leave room for baby. And then start to come down. You can bring your forearms to the bolster if you feel like you can't go all the way. Or, like I mentioned before, you can add that extra padding of blankets. It does feel really nice to be able to turn one side of your face and just fully relax into this posture. So this is called resting dragonfly. We started in resting butterfly. And you can probably feel it, but this is another great hip opener. Also great for stretching into the hamstrings so for you pregnant women, it's really good for avoiding those Charlie horses. Wherever you're at in this resting dragonfly pose, go ahead and take one more breath, and then we're going to turn the other side of our face. So if you weren't resting your face down, you don't have to move. As you're returning to your breath, you're taking a moment to travel through your body. Noticing, do the sides feel equal? Is there a different sensation on the left versus the right? How does your back feel? Trying to notice more than just the really obvious sensations of your inner thighs, your hamstrings. So really taking the body as a whole here. Let's take 3 more deep breaths in our resting dragonfly. When you're ready to come out of this pose, again, sliding the hands underneath the shoulders, pressing the body up, pausing for a moment in a neutral spine. And we have officially finished out our restorative poses, so we're going to get ready for our final relaxation, Shavasana pose. So if you're pregnant, it is recommended not to go flat on your back if you're in your second or third trimester. So if that's you, we're going to do side lying resting pose instead, which is basically lying on your side in fetal position. The other difference would be allowing the bolster to be behind you and lean on you. And it just adds a really cozy, comforting feeling, almost like someone is behind you and cuddling up with you, which I love. So get comfortable, whether you're going into the traditional Shavasana or side lying resting. You gonna rest with us? Okay. All right. If you are doing side lying, another option is to use your blankets to get more comfortable. So I'm going to grab one, fold it underneath for my head, and grab another folded and put it between my knees. And then slowly come down. Your left side is best, but honestly choose whichever is most comfortable right now. Lean that bolster on you if you can. If not, don't worry about it. And just get comfortable. If you haven't yet, allow your eyes to close. And all this pose really is just giving yourself a chance to digest your practice, to fully rest the body, to not have to do anything, but to simply just be. And so if you find your mind starting to wander in the silence, just allow your breath to be that tool to bring you back. So once you notice the mind has wandered off again, just use that inhale to interrupt your thought. And then as you exhale, drop right back into your body. Do it as many times as it takes, over and over again. And then I'm just going to encourage everyone to stay in this resting position as long as you would like. You can pause this video not only here but at any time throughout our practice and stay in a pose longer, or maybe you needed to use the bathroom, get some water. That's the beautiful thing about these pre-recorded classes is you can pause and do your own timing. But for the sake of this video, I'm going to close out class here. So I just want to thank you guys for tuning in to another video on Mama Mantras. I hope you enjoyed our restorative practice today. Let me know in the comments down below what type of yoga you'd like to see next. Probably the next video I record, especially for yoga, is going to be postpartum related because I will probably have a baby by then. Yeah, so happy holidays to everybody. I hope you guys are all staying well and healthy. And if you haven't yet, make sure to press subscribe and to share this with your friends and family. My community is growing very slowly, but it is growing, and I really appreciate all of you that have been sharing the videos with your friends and your loved ones. Thank you so much. Have a blessed day.